Ladies, gentlemen, NBs, this is the Eat, Sleep, Elite, Repeat Fantasy Podcast Extravaganza, motherfucker. It's ready to fucking go. Anyway, I don't even know what that was. That was just, I threw that in there because, you know, the world might end today, so fuck it, you know? It literally could. This could be the last podcast you ever hear in your life. If this is what you're choosing to do with your last 20 minutes on Earth as the nukes are flying in, respect. I mean, what better show to be listening to somebody talk about, honestly, in the last moments of existence? I mean, this is probably the last good show we ever get if the world does end, so, you know. But anyway, this is the House of Depression review. Oh, sorry, House of the Dragon review. Sorry, that's what I'm feeling after this show being gone for the next 2 years. But, yeah.
Isn't that the fucking truth?
Yeah, good old House of Depression. But it's a great show. We actually honestly should talk about that. And actually, I'll do a little bit of that right now. I mean, wow. So we literally, we started all the way back with fucking, like, with this stuff with, like, Blood and Cheese. And, like, we had, like, introductions of really important characters. And that just shows you how much fucking depth just one episode has. And we're all the way here now where we're at, where we have the Triarchy involved, and we have, you know, fucking mud wrestling, and Kristen Cole and Gwen having, like, fucking wartime fucking depression talks. You know what I mean? This is fucking, oh God, this whole season has been very contained, and yet it still feels like, I mean, God, it's so hard to even think, like, so many little things happen in each episode. You know what I mean? I've been doing a really bad job of explaining my thoughts right now, but what I'm basically trying to say is, like, there may have been things that I like, if you go back into each individual episode review, that I'd be like, oh, this or all that. And I'll still be doing some of that in this episode because, you know, I can't help it. Whenever there's something I really like.
It's going to be perfect from beginning to end.
Correct. Especially in a season where we talked about a little bit before, not to jump on it right away, but like the stuff with Allison this season has been a little bit, you know, they were trying to come up with stuff for the character to do because there's not much content in the book at this point for the character. So, you know, which is, it is what it is, you know, you were going to get that. I did suspect that was probably going to have to happen if they were going to keep her around and not just write her out of the show, which that would be a horrible thing to do with, you have a talented actress like Olivia Cook in there, you know what I mean? Why would you waste her? You know what I mean? At least give her something to do. She can make something out of it. She's talented, you know what I mean? But either way, not to completely tangent on that. But yeah, no, I mean, this whole season, I just felt like, for one, it felt great to just have a Game of Thrones show back on TV again. And, you know, I'd say the thing that I'm unfortunately the most focused on right now is the fact that we're not going to have it again for a while. But to be honest given what we got in this last episode, I mean, I guess I'll just toss it over to you because I thought I actually had more thoughts on this episode other than, like, without just getting into the actual events of the episode. I guess I really, you know, the whole season, I just had a really good time with it. Like, I remember saying to you, what was it, 2-3 episodes ago, that, like, there was things in the season that were making me go, I don't know, are we going to get where I want us to get by the end of the season, you know? Am I going to be good with this? And I said then, I think I will be. I do agree with myself then. Past me was correct. I did end up really liking this season by the end of it. Not that I didn't then, but there was, I think, a possibility in my head that had things gone really weird, or they decided to change some things drastically, or they did some really weird stuff. I think I just said the same thing twice. But if they did some weird stuff, you know, I think maybe I could have been, like, come down on a more negative side, but I don't think so. I think this show is too good. I think Ryan Condal has my trust. I think the actors and actresses who put their work into this show have proven that when you have the budget, the time, the dedication, and a brilliant writing staff, that it can create really incredible art.
I think you just put it very well, and I think this season, even more than the first, I think Ryan Condal has definitely earned a lot of our trust.
Yeah, and shout out George for the inspiration for the show by making it the story in the first place.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they give him the created by. It's very important. It's little things, but whether it's comic book writers or just writers in general, they need to be acknowledged for their incredible work. That's in.
I don't know why we don't get the comic book writers that come up with these stories. Maybe Marvel should start doing that. I know that they have the IP and they own it, right? And they could just say, "Oh, based on the Marvel comics," right? Mm-hmm. But give me, I know half of them would be like Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, you know, Steve Ditko. But it really doesn't matter because if they did it, they did. If they created this fucking vast universe of shit that you're making money off of, give them some credit.
Yeah. Well, for my overall thoughts, it's really hard to compare any series to this one. It really is. This is my favorite franchise, set in a time period with characters I just care so much about. I genuinely can't believe how much time we're able to spend building and beginning this war. That, like, That's the thing. The war has been building and building and building, and things have been happening, and they've hit all the plot points necessary in Fire and Blood. They haven't skipped anything, which, if you're readers like us who really enjoyed Fire and Blood, they've hit everything that we needed them to hit.
And I mean, they did skip that mill battle. I don't know about that. That was kind of, they literally did kind of skip that a little bit.
Like, we
did see the aftermath. Yeah. I'm not saying we didn't see it, but I would like to see. I'd rather was it Amos Bracken? Was that the kid from the first season that fucking killed the guy or whatever, or whoever it was? No, Amos Bracken was the old dude. Who was was it a Blackwood kid? The kid that was like, he dies in that battle, right?
Yes, but more of Blackwoods and Brackens. But
he dies in that battle.
That,
and, you know,
we saw the beginning.
See, that's the show. Okay, that's an invented thing in the show. See, that's why I was shocked they didn't show that, because they killed off an invented character in that scene. You know what I mean? So I was really surprised I guess they wanted it for the shock value, and I get that. That's cool. Yeah. But I just thought, if we come on, someone saw that kid can use a sword, we probably killed a couple people with him. You know what I mean? Anyway, whatever. Would have been cool to see him throw down. You know what I mean? Whatever.
But yeah, but
the mill was still good. I mean, it was still 100%. It still worked.
Check mark hit, and it was hit. And you know,
let me backwards something. Do you think the mill? Because maybe we got shown a little stuff out of order with Harrenhal, because it's possible, right? We just don't know, because Daemon was tripping his balls off, right? What if that was what they told them to go do that was dishonorable? I could see that. Like, maybe they did some shit at the mill that was bad. Or timeline-wise, that doesn't make sense, but I don't know. Who knows?
I do think that is
because they didn't say what they did, right, in the show that was so dishonorable.
But before he talks to Willem, he does acknowledge that you guys just went to the swords on your own. Like, did you really even...
Son of a bitch. Why did they have to include that line? They could have just left it up for
little things like that.
Oh, well, that's fine. That doesn't matter.
But yeah, we have some pretty big...
Just so everyone's clear, I didn't think that. I was just wondering it now. I was like, that would be kind of a cool backward thing. You never know.
Yeah. And it's, in the next year, there's going to be some really big casting is announced. And when they do, that's going to be fucking exciting. And, sometimes you just brought up a good point. And I do think sometimes people do need to be reminded this is a drama show. And, the characters are often the priority. And that's always been the case in Game of Thrones. It's always been and that's what makes all those great TV shows successful, is the characters. At the end of the day, when it's all bottled down, it's always about the characters.
This isn't the kind of show where, Viserys in season 1 is going to be like, I can't believe you would disrespect and dishonor me in this House of the Dragon, turns to camera, music cue. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's not that kind of show. You know what I mean?
This is not an action franchise. It never has been. There's going to be great set pieces, but if you're going in expecting every episode to be Battle of the Bastards, you're going to end up upset. Straight up. I messaged you this last night. Post-finale depression has definitely set in a little bit. But now we wait until 2026 for the return of the motherfucking dragon. But
we get Game of Thrones next year-ish, so that's fine.
Unlike last time, we have another show.
You best believe we're going to be reviewing that shit when it comes out. So it must be filming now already, right? If it's...
Correct. They released their first 5 little seconds of footage, and they put it up there with The Last of Us. So they are going to care. They're going to promote this show. It's going to be fucking huge.
Shit, we get The Last of Us next year too.
Yep. But just like with this show, if people are going in expecting Battle of the Bastards every episode, motherfucker, you are going to be disappointed. Straight up.
What, with Last of Us? Or with Night of the Seven Kingdoms?
Just Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
That story's much more about the pre-Robert's Rebellion political drama, from what I understand. So, which is very interesting.
Some of the moments of this episode, there was 3 distinct conversations that just Jason Bela, Alan and Corlys, and Cole and Gwen. We'll get into them now. So let's hit directed by Gita Patel, written by Sarah Hess. When I saw that this was the combo...
Wait, didn't Gita Patel direct / write, whichever they did? I can't remember what you said there, but weren't they involved in an episode we really liked last season?
Yes, it was. Fuck, of course, now I forget the exact episode.
But yeah, I do remember that person's name, because we talked about... Was this something me and Charlie will do frequently?
This season.
Yeah, okay, that must be where I'm probably remembering it from. But I do remember if it wasn't this season, if they didn't do an episode last season and I'm misremembering, this is something we often do with these shows. We've been doing this since, I think, season 2 of Mandalorian, probably. We looked at, season 1, but we were much more into season 2 to see what other directors did, and then they got spun off into other shows and stuff like that. But we always look at the directors and the writers because, one, we want to credit them, but also because it's always fascinating to see what
Season
combos
1,
really
episode
work.
8, The Lord of the Tides.
That's okay. Yeah, there we go.
And then she did episode 3 this season, The Burning Mill. So,
to be honest with you, if you did any episodes last season, there wasn't a bad episode last season. So, and I don't think there was a bad episode this season either. So, like it's, going forward, we just have this like, consortium of directors and writers that we know that if you just combo them together, they're going to work. And I just think that's crazy because like even Mandalorian hasn't been that consistent with its writing and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, look, my favorite Star Wars director, Bryce Dallas Howard. I think she's done the best stuff. She had the worst episode of Mandalorian season 3. Not everyone's always going to hit. Straight up. Not everyone will. But I really like their track record. And same with Alan Taylor. Let's make sure we get him back next season. He had episode 1 and episode 4 this season. I really, really thought he did some great stuff. So we open up in Tyrosh. I believe this is the first time we've been here. We've been to Lys, we've been to Mir, among other places in Essos, but I do not believe we've ever been to Tyrosh. So it was really cool. The kind of a vibe. We had a monkey.
I think they call it I think they call them Tyroshi or something like that. I think they mentioned a Tyroshi cheesemonger in like one episode of Game of Thrones. No cap. Like I think that's the only time we get this place mentioned, other than as being part of like the consortium's the word of the day, kids.
But so when we opened up with this, I'm immediately thinking to myself, no fucking way. Like I really thought this was one of those things, like we've kind of seen them do in the past, whether it's Dorne or what, that they're going to just kind of skip over it and explain it later. No, we have Tylan Lannister. He's meeting with the Triarchy. Again, Lys, Mir, and Tyrosh. The Kingdom of the Three Daughters, or perhaps the Kingdom of the Three Whores, whichever way you want to look at it. This is the only time in Ice and Fire history where these three free cities are united. This is a very rare time. So the Triarchy is relatively... It's like year 40-ish of it at this point, but yeah, it's pretty big. They're not buying that the Lannister doesn't have enough money.
If I remember right, it was just one of those things that popped up during Jaehaerys' reign, right? Or something like that during the time post-Jaehaerys, right? Where they were just like...
Yeah, it was either post-Jaehaerys,
or like right at the end.
With the big Stepstones War.
I do remember, the Stepstones at this point have been getting like disputed over by the free cities for like a while, and like Jaehaerys, it's like one of those things that Jaehaerys and his descendants really couldn't deal with because there was too much else going on. But it's like a thorn in the side of the Targaryens for a little while. So them having to actually like deal with it here makes a lot of sense because I mean they already technically. I don't know if we talked about this already, but the crab feeder was a Myrish prince who was a member of the Triarchy. So there you go.
Yeah, and. Tylan is trying to get their help to break the blockade. They want the Stepstones to return. We see a Tyrosh man who I immediately thought, this guy is what our boy Daario Naharis was supposed to look like. Straight up. With the blue hair. I saw someone wrote, biblically accurate Daario Naharis. And I'm like, oh my God, they're so fucking right. That he was supposed to have the blue hair.
Comic accurate Daario.
They're so right. Those fucking cowards made him look like a normal dude. But I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Tylan knows what they're trying to do is extortion with the Stepstones, but he has no choice. He needs to flee to the Warheads. He believes the Prince Regent may have him hanged for this. And it sends home that point we've been trying to tell everyone all season. Everyone fears Aemon One Eye. They straight up do. Lohar must agree to travel with Tylan. She walks in, calls him Tywin. She won't sail with a man who will not best her. So that was really, really fun opening scene, in my opinion.
I'm convinced that Tywin wasn't a family name in the Lannisters, but then like Tylan wrote that down. You're like, that's not a bad guys. That's not a bad name. We should reserve this for somebody.
Like, wait a minute. Bring that one back.
Hold on. Let her cook.
Yeah. Fucking Deadpool. Oh yeah. Okay. Do we see Aemon on Vhagar? Fuck it. This is a new scene. This is a new entry point. It's just going to start being Aemon on Vhagar. They have just laid waste to Sharp
I
Point.
suspect that he's going to lay waste to way more of Westeros than he actually did in the book because they need to make him the final boss for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And even Tylan, like, speaking in fear of what what could happen next time he sees him. Like,
and given the way the characters are paralleled in the book, that's not really a spoiler because they've literally made the direct comparisons in both Daemon's dream sequences, and I think Aemon has been. There was a whole through line of season 1 where he kept looking over at Daemon like, "Whoa, this guy's pretty cool." When he would do dastardly shit,
Oh yeah, and they've mentioned so many times this season. He wants the respect of his uncle, but he also wants to be him.
Yes.
But he also wants to prove he's the final boss.
And I think he also wants to kill him on a certain level too. Like now at this point, maybe not then, but certainly now. So there's been a through line between the two characters. So I don't think it's really spoilery for me to talk about that. You know what I mean?
No. That's the fight everyone wants to see.
Correct. That is if there's a Clegane Bowl type fight in this, it is that fight, and they're building it up, and as they should. But I think if that's the case, then we may see a parallel with Daemon, where he does a lot more atrocities on behalf of the Greens, even if it's on behalf of Rhaenyra still. Maybe that's the part he's not willing to sacrifice, where he thinks he has to do that in order to match the level of fear that Vhagar and Aemond are able to put out there, so that they have. Because I do think there will be a point where people are going to realize, like I've said before, that I don't really take sides in this war. You know, we're not really Team Green or Team Black, because we know in reality, in the end, everyone's going to lose, regardless of what happens. That's why this is such an important conflict. They framed this as the time when the dragons died, because this is when the Targaryens started to lose their power. You know, like
it's a big deal.
So you know, like
so we see people.
We're already running out of dragons pretty quick. We've already lost a few. You know what I mean? We've had one battle. Like
people are burning to death. They're screaming.
We had to legitimize the bastards. That's how tense this is getting. You know what I mean? Like
legitimize them all. He has a look on his face of embarrassment, and he's cowering after Dragonstone. This is him, this is a child fucking lashing out. Literally, he's lashing out. We jump to Aegon's room. He convinces Maester Orwell to give him some rum. Larys enters and pitches to the king that they need to flee. His brother will come back and kill him if they are still here. Is this true? Is it not? I wrote schemes within schemes. We've been reading a lot of Dunes. It's always on my mind. Aegon, like a sausage, it popped. Oh my god, dude! Did we need that? Absolutely not.
No,
but now that we have it.
No, stop it. No, we needed it.
Hey,
we needed it.
This could come back to Maelor the Missing, though. You never know.
Hey, think about it like this. Hear me out. I think Helena accepts that that's her husband, right? I don't think she ever wanted to marry her brother. I'm gonna be honest with you. So
yeah, we never really got that vibe that they did.
It's kind of, and let's be honest, all forced marriages like this, where the person doesn't want to be your, husband, wife, and they have had kids, so they have had sex. So, and I'm just saying, I don't think Helena is the type. She might even be asexual for all we know. I don't know that.
I think he definitely got his pleasure out in pleasure houses, where with her it was just business. So.
Yeah, but still, if she doesn't want it and she doesn't want anything to do with the guy in that way, then no one deserves to be burned by their brother with dragonfire. But
that's that unfortunate part. If they got to do what they got to do.
At least he doesn't have a cock to do that to her anymore. Nope. So that's good.
Which how ironic now that his only heir is a daughter. Yet the reason this war's happening.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I just realized that. So there is no bloodline security for the Greens at this point, which kind of explains a lot of why Alicent would maybe be a little more willing to do what she does later in this episode because of that insecurity of the bloodline at this point. That makes a lot of sense, because obviously
and why Larys is pitching to him like, dude, you need to flee because the minute he fucking kills you.
Well, here's the thing. If they found out that Aegon doesn't have a cock, he might be removed from being king because he can't make a new heir. So the fact that they're hiding him actually makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I gotta say, this is one of my favorite subplots that we got in the back half of the season was the Larys, comforting Aegon, and I think that's such a brilliant thing to do. And I think the actor that plays Larys, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but Matthew, whatever his name is. Really, I know I'm such a great Matthew Needham. First of all, he's really funny in all the side interviews I see. He's just he reminds me of the dude that played Littlefinger, where in the interviews he would just be very dry and honest. You know what I mean? Because that's the kind of character he's playing. You know what I mean? Maybe not honest isn't good for either of those characters, but it's very you know what they are. They're the character everyone knows is manipulating them and cheating them, but they deal with it because they know they can help them anyway. But in this scene specifically, I really liked him, and then throughout all the scenes in that arc, subplot, whatever you want to call it this season, because it's such a brilliant choice, because it makes sense. Who else would have any idea what it's like to be going through what he's going through right now besides this guy, you know what I mean? And I love the decision to involve Larys directly in getting him out of the Red Keep, because we didn't know. Again, this is another character. We didn't really know what he was doing, but he's such a brilliant character, you can literally have him do anything.
Schemes within schemes. Who knows what the fuck he's really thinking?
We don't know if he actually cares what happens to Aegon. We just know that he politically doesn't trust Aemond, and so he's trying to secure himself some kind of way to get back into power once Aemond is no longer in power, if he can make that happen somehow, so.
And a big part of his pitch is, the civilians will turn to him when they return. They will hail the return of their king. They go over some nicknames, and Aegon ends up calling
let's
himself...
actually do a direct comparison of that really quickly. See, that is how you use a character that we don't know what they were doing at this point in the book. He drops out completely for a very good reason at this point in the story in the book. But because if you knew what he was doing at this time in the book, it would ruin some twists. Some of those twists which have been...
Yeah.
Should we talk about that now since it's probably not going to work out that way in the... No, we won't actually. Never mind. But you know where I was going to go with that? You know where I was going to go with that? And yeah, we'll save it for Fire and Blood because I think what I'll say is I think there might be a twist in the book that might play out differently on the show. It may not be the same kind of twist. You know what I mean? It might be... The twist may be, they may frame the twist differently, is what I'm getting at, which is probably for the best, given how they set it up, which is, it's kind of, how would you have done it the way they did it in the book? You couldn't have it would have just had to not include characters, you know what I mean? Which is not something that you would do. We talked about that at the top. You can't do that. They're such brilliant actors, Needham and Cook. You just can't not use them, so.
Yep.
But this makes sense. This is how you use a character that we don't know. We don't know what they were doing at this point.
We don't know, yeah.
You play him like you don't know, and then you have him do something in the story that makes sense. I guess technically they did that with her as well, but we'll get into it. You know what I mean?
They were talking about some nicknames, and the one that stuck out to me the most was Aegon calling himself the Realm's Delight. And I think it just boils down to him still hurting from his father, favoring his sister over him. And that has been a core part of Aegon's character this season. Straight up.
He just wants to be loved.
He does. And
I don't even think any of the people that say that they love him in his life actually even really mean it. You know what I mean?
Sometimes it feels like only Sunfire is the one that cares about him.
And Sunfire's fucking dead.
Got no wing. Yeah, dead.
That's what he said.
Left at Rook's Rest, yeah.
That's what he said. My dragon's dead.
So we jump to Rhaena in the Vale. She wanders around, and you got to question yourself, what in the fuck is she doing right now? She's looking for a dragon. Time has clearly passed as she is desperate for water. Oh my god. These are fucking wretched scenes.
Oh yeah.
This Rhaena in the Vale shit. This is a first draft. This is not.
First of all, how did this make it into the last episode? They should have just left this arc until next season and just left it at what they did in the last episode. If you left it the way they did, where she's just walking off with them into the Vale, like in like that like sort of like van or whatever, like to go after this dragon, and that's how you left the season with her, and you just didn't see her. Maybe you saw her like briefly at the beginning of this episode, and she's gone, right?
Yeah.
The fact that they played it like they were going to give her the dragon in this episode, and then they didn't.
Should have claimed this thing fucking 3 episodes ago if we were doing this.
Well, correct. But, I mean, if we were doing this also, like, it's still cool that we got to see Sheepstealer, right? But...
Presumably.
Well, Sheepstealer or... I mean, it wasn't the cannibal. We would know if it was the cannibal.
It could be Morning. It could be her dragon.
Oh, that's true. It could be Morning. That's right. Oh, wait. Oh, God. So Morning is just a wild dragon then? Oh, God. That would be insane.
Like, I have no idea what they're doing with this.
But either way, whatever dragon we saw, right? I thought a lot of people assuming Sheepstealer, but we don't know, right?
Yeah. That's why we say presumably. We don't know. They didn't name it.
Whichever dragon it turns out to be. I don't know why she didn't get it in this episode. We cut back to it like what 4 different times in this episode or something. Like I thought we were gonna see at least one of those times she saw the dragon, but she didn't claim it. So that was really kind of wild.
Now we'll get into that, but yeah, these were completely unnecessary. And honestly,
let's not even get into it. They were unnecessary. That's all I really have to say about them. Is like, why didn't that happen? That's really weird.
They dragged. I can agree with people pointing to certain things dragging. This is an example. These Rhaena
said it was a dragon along
big time. Speaking of dragging along like a cock, we jump to Black Council, where Jace finds Ulf and Hugh. Ulf is acting a goof. He's got his feet on the table. He's absolutely shook to his core.
This son of a fucking bitch. How dare he disrespect the Targaryen name by pissing on the floor.
He shook it to his core when Ulf's like, that's the prince, my boy. He hugs him. He fucking just walks up and hugs him. He mentions the hair. He says, who are they to tell us we are not Targaryens?
Bro doesn't know. Jace stabbed a guy in the eye.
Yep.
Wait, sorry, that was Luke. Sorry, never mind. Luke did
Dragon
that, but
Riders
he punched him in the eye.
Yeah, he did. Jace a badass. He says, you and I are cut from the same cloth, and you just know that fucking pissed Jace off. He's so angry.
He's not wrong. He's out of line.
Hugh asks for forgiveness. Jace ends up showing some serious leadership, and honestly, he almost kind of came off as a total dick here. He says, pretty much take this seriously, or you'll see your body hanged in the streets to be eaten by dogs. Damn. I took this, you can see this as 2 things, though. Leadership.
God, I feel so valid. That's fucking Leto Atreides right there, buddy.
Yeah, it is. Ulf apologizes. They both end up leaving, and, you know.
He should have said he was going to feed him to his lions.
We jump to Driftmark.
I'll feed you to the worms on Arrakis.
We jump to Driftmark, where Rhaenyra and Corlys discuss the new Dragon Riders. She mentions how he knows Adam of Hole. He's a man of integrity, he responds. Rhaenyra now has the advantage. Corlys says to Daeron and Helena having dragons.
You know what, though? I gotta say something about Corlys. He kind of didn't really do shit this season.
No, he's just grief. No.
His through line
Most of
was the sons, and I get that. He could have done something. See,
Yeah.
that is
but
he doesn't do anything insane. So we have 3 different versions. We have Alicent, who they invent a bunch of random nonsense for her to do, right? They have, which is not bad, but it exists. We have Larys, who they just invent a thing in the story that makes sense for him to do based on his character. You could have done the same thing. Yeah, he was prepping up for he was holding the blockade, right? But we never really see him doing that. So
it was about him. Yeah, agreed. Well, I think this scene's important. So hold that thought. We'll talk about it after this scene.
Go ahead. It's just something that occurred to me while I was thinking about Corlys.
Yeah.
I was like, wow,
Yeah.
I kept waiting for Corlys to get a moment this season. You know what I mean?
And he points out that Rhaenyra now has the advantage, but he says you have to respect Daeron and Helena having dragons. You have to respect it. Aemond thought himself invincible. He has now discovered he is not. And that's a big thing going forward. So he says the sea snake has now been renamed. It is now the queen who never was. Rhaenyra thanks him. He says, what I do now, I do for her.
So that is a straight up change, right, from the books?
I have no idea. I honestly...
I don't remember them ever specifying that he changes the ship name. He might have.
Yeah,
It's possible.
That's the thing about I don't remember the sea snake ever being mentioned again after its big thing.
No, it's usually it's big
years and
time
years
is when you
ago.
hear about his when you talk about the 9 voyages briefly, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
But other than that, and you spend a whole last couple hundred pages, I feel like, on that voyage. No, maybe not that many, but at least a couple pages on that. You know what I mean? So he gets his time on that, but. Yeah, I don't remember it ever being renamed. If they decided just to do that because of how important that scene in that moment in the war is, obviously that makes sense.
It's very fitting.
It's not a change, if it did happen and we're just not remembering it, I don't remember it ever specifically happening. But if it did happen, cool. But if it didn't, I don't really think that's not the kind of thing that would ever upset me. And it's actually a good change because, that's how you show his grief right there. You know what I mean?
And then Corlys, and this is what I was getting to. Now, this is him being her hand of the queen. He says the time is now. She's ready to take the throne, whether it's fleets, dragons, and more. But they have one more thing that they need to figure out, and that's what's happening with Daemon. So, I think Corlys' direction this season has been about him becoming hand, and now I believe this is the first scene where he really feels like he was her hand of the queen, and this is a big deal for him now. He just laid it out, straight up. It's time. And it's time to go fucking get King's Landing. Let's win this fucking war.
See, that's what they could have had him do. And it felt like that's what they wanted him to do while she was off doing her, errands, around when she wasn't missing meetings and stuff. It just felt like he was there, but he wasn't taking charge of the meetings despite being
Agreed.
hand.
He wasn't taking charge at all. Now he is.
And maybe that was intentional, and I'm just misreading it,
I
and that's
believe so.
possible. It's possible, But I think could have given him something cool. I don't know.
I mean, think about it. Until Bela gives him it, he's still just kind of focused on his own. I mean, he has to be focused on his own stuff, though. At the same time, that's the kind of complicated thing about picking someone like him for your hand. This guy's he rules Driftmark.
He's very difficult to get Corlys to do what you want because he's very, very and this is kind of the through line of his and Rhaenys' relationship evolving like it did last season into this season is that ultimately, while yes, jokes aside, he likes to be sexually told what to do. But when it comes to his life, he is the only lord in Westeros' history that is self-made. You know what I mean? That I can even think of. You know what I mean? There's maybe been a couple, but that I can think of off the top of my head. The next one to come along won't be till Littlefinger, really. And even then, he still started off rich. You know what I mean? So, this is a self-made guy. He's going to do what he thinks is best for himself and his house and his future. He doesn't really care. I'm bridging on potentially saying something I shouldn't here, but you know what I mean? Obviously I'm not going to do that, but you know what I mean? It's laid out, it's laid out all there in the way his character thinks, he's because he's made it himself. I'm just going to say it, not to say what I'm thinking here, which is that because he's self-made, he's maybe not always going to listen to everything you tell him to do because he might thinks he knows better. You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
I think this is him accepting that maybe he has to play that role sometimes, the hand, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To me, this felt like the hand is here. So We jump to Harrenhal, where Alfred Broom finally arrives. This is how long it takes if you're not on fucking dragon. I like that they should, it's been like 4 episodes. It took him some time without a dragon. So he arrives to see what Daemon's up to. Daemon intends to take advantage of the Lannisters' hesitation, as we saw that in a previous episode, how much they've been hesitating. They don't even want to march without Aemond. Alfred Broom says he believes they need a king. Rhaenyra has faltered. Daemon is a leader. Daemon believes he's a fucking turncloak. And Sir Simon pretty much watches this whole conversation. We come back to that later. Aemon and Ironrod, they're talking about the dragon seeds. They're kind of walking through the Red Keep. No vessel can leave without inspection from here on out. And Ironrod's like, dude, that's not a good idea, man. We drift off from that scene seamlessly to another scene within the Red Keep of Alicent and Helaena. They're kind of pondering why everyone hates them. They talk about how even though they didn't order the blockade, they're expected to break it as the crown. Helaena was happier before being queen. And Alicent wonders what she thinks about leaving this place. Aemon enters. The crown needs her to ride her dragon to war. It's necessary to preserve the throne. It's not a question. He's like, they've defiled our birthright. We are in peril more today than yesterday. And Alicent pretty much reads him for his filth, talking about being a sore loser and losing to the small folk. They know that they are currently losing the war, but Alicent doesn't want it to be fire and blood. Gotta tell you, Alicent, it's too fucking late. Alicent ends up seeing Orwyle after this, and he needs her assist. She sees Orwyle after this, and he needs his assistant for safe passage out of town. So, yeah. This was a pretty, it does make sense that Aemon, with how much of an asshole this guy is, straight up, he's even going to ask someone like Helaena to ride on a dragon and fly to war.
So we get 2 really important things here, I think, that we discussed a tiny bit before the show, and I'm going to definitely hit here, which is that Helaena is against the war. We've never heard her take. We don't know what her opinion is on it. When asked to fight, she says, I don't want to burn anybody. That's her take, is, I might be the queen, and I might have a dragon, and I might be a Targaryen, but I don't want to fight in this war. I don't believe in killing the innocent. She doesn't care about any of the... She's like... She doesn't care if that means that Aegon doesn't get to be king. She doesn't care that means that she doesn't get to be queen anymore, because as you said, she says she's not even happy being queen anyway. She doesn't care if that means that Aemon doesn't get to have any power. And this is the first time so far in the series, in my opinion, we've had a version of the character, but he's been, I think, intentionally playing it down because I've been asking him to in previous scenes so that we can get a little bit more depth into the actual personality of the character, right? But this is the first time we got the evil, maniacal Aemon, where he's just fully gone to the dark side and he no longer cares about his family or anyone else in the kingdom. He just wants to cause mayhem at this point. And I mean, I gotta give Ewan Mitchell all the credit in the world. He absolutely destroyed this scene, and I'm really excited to talk about. Is it? Oh my gosh! It's Fia Saban. It's Fia Saban.
Yep.
That's how you pronounce her name.
Yeah, Fia
her
Saban.
Performance in the other scene, the 2 share later in the episode. I want to get to that as quickly as we possibly can because that scene is. I really am excited to talk about that. But yeah, this as like a setup for that scene later really works. Yeah, so let's go ahead and let's move on.
So we immediately jump from that to Gawain and Kristen Cole scene. So. Gawain is holding
this show is so good.
Oh, he's holding a sword to his throat, and he's questioning him about his oath, which, with Kristen Cole, he's one of the most intriguing POV
He said, hey, homie, I heard you were plugging my sister. What the fuck?
Yeah, he's like, you've been fucking the queen, but he's like, would you really dishonor your sister? I'm the hand of the king. You'd ruin the Hightower name for a generation. He says, Alicent saved his life. Since then, she's been a beacon that he follows. He says, perhaps all men are corrupt, and true honor is a mist that melts in the morning. Gawain's like, that is a bleak philosophy, man. And Kristen's like, I'm not a man of philosophy. He's like grabbing a sword. He's like, protect the righteous and dispense justice on the rest. He says, the dragons dance and we are like dust under their feet. All our thoughts are endeavors are as nothing.
By the way, pause. I want to say something really quickly. Him saying that's a bleak philosophy. What's interesting about that is, do you remember the conversation in 2 episodes ago or 3, whatever it was, where he had with Alicent, where they talk? It might have been 2, where they talk, the 2 of them. And one of the things he talks about is she knows that being in King's Landing is basically what ruined Aemon and Aegon's chances to have any sort of honorable existence and upbringing, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why Daeron didn't have that happen to him is because, well, at least they suspect it's because he grew up in Old Town where there's less of that going on, right? So, so he knows that honor is kind of a relative thing. It really depends on you know, how you were raised and where you were raised and what manner you were, you know, taught to act in, as opposed to whether or not like you're actually a good person, you know, like, which is an interesting thing for the show to say, because sometimes the show thinks the Targaryens are magically determined whether or not they, which is not really how the coin flip thing is, it's a metaphor, but you get what I'm saying. Like, that's kind of how they play it sometimes. But no, it truly is where you were raised, how you were raised, right? So he's aware of this distinction of honor not really being a real thing. So him saying that says that even though he thinks that, he still believes to some extent in not just this sort of suicidal, like I don't even know what you would call it, just sort of like, just depression that Cole is in right now, you know?
And just to capitalize on that, he literally says, we march now toward our annihilation. To die will be kind of a relief, don't you think? I mean, holy shit.
And what is the actor playing Gwain's name? Because I got to give him a shout out here.
Yes, the actor playing Gwaine Hightower is none other than Freddie Fox.
So Freddie Fox's reaction to that line, in his facial reaction, oh my God. Again, pictures takes, you know, 1,000 words, you know, that quote. That picture right there, I need to get an image of just that. You know what I mean? Like, because it's probably like, it probably looks like, you know what I would probably, you know, infamous photo of the dude staring off into space in Vietnam, or in like there's that World War II or World War I pilot photo, or you know what I'm saying? Like the guy in the trenches, like those kinds of photos like that, where they're just like gone. That to me is how Gwaine looked right there when he just realized they're all fucked. You know what I mean?
What an incredibly written scene. We have a Ty Roach scene where Tylan is mud wrestling Laura. We then jump to Dragonstone, where Jace is pouting. Baela approaches him. She calls him out on not helping his mom and being literally like called him out on being a pouting little bitch. She knows he's angry. He's like, "Aren't you?" She says he doesn't see what good it would do. He's like, he's just so upset about these non-birth, you know, dragon riders, and he's all, they're an insult to us, to what makes us Targaryens. Baela's, that does not make me common, or you. She says, you know what I am. She says, I don't care. You are the crown prince, the son of the rightful
Baela
king.
with the fucking woke mind virus.
Yeah. She says, and here you are sulking because you believe that if not for the dragon or the trappings of your station, that you are nothing. Do you believe you are the first noble heir who was not sired by his noble father? Such is the way of the world. With resenting it, you only diminish yourself. And he goes, you know, easy enough for you to say. I've heard these whispers all my life. She says, well, then prove you are worthy. Get up and take your place by your mother's side. And I gotta tell you, Jace looked like you really needed to hear that. And just such a beautiful fucking scene. And this is the definition of how we needed our other characters to really kind of get this more time.
Baela, like, literally is Targaryen family counseling at this point.
Yes, and this is Baela. She is fire and blood. This is... We desperately needed this fucking scene.
You know, there is a couple of times in the book where she does show up randomly when people do need somebody and, like, literally fixes things. So she does seem like she's cut from that same cloth as, like, who was it? Was it Alicent that would always do that? She'd just, like, somebody would be effing off somewhere and she'd be like...
Pretty much. And
I'm going to go hang out with them for a bit. Jaehaerys, you're kind of being a dick right now, and I'll go fix that. And then they'd go over there and they'd be like... The Kingsguard, where they'd show up and they'd talk with Jaehaerys' Kingsguard and be like, yeah, no, she's actually fixed everything. It's great. And they'd be like, nah, it's fine. What are you going to do?
This is just another example of why whenever we have an episode with Sarah Haas, I'm immediately kind of excited because she understands these characters so well. And it's virtually, outside of the fucking mud wrestling scene, back-to-back scenes of just unbelievable fucking dialogue.
Yeah.
And this is some of the best Baela we've ever had, outside of her scene when she hands Corlys the fucking badge. Mm-hmm. I hope that in this writer's room, you know, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
they realize what they have in Baela.
How amazing! This show was getting written right after the strike too, right? Like, you know, like, am I correct?
It was filming during it because
that's right. They wrote this, so they probably, like, any writing they had to do on the fly was probably done just right after the strike was done, presumably. You know what I mean? They probably shot what they could without, you know, dialogue or rewrites or whatever. You know what I mean? But like beyond, this is something I didn't think about at the time. They probably just had stuff that worked that they didn't have to rewrite, because this isn't the kind of show you necessarily have to rewrite. Like, the writer can't be involved. You might just film what you have, and then if you need to go back and change it later, you do it then. You know what I mean? But anyway, because filming schedules are long or whatever. But yeah, continue.
And yeah, I thought that was a very, very important scene, and it was fantastic. We get a Rhaena scene where she's shivering in the cold. 3 seconds. I got nothing. All right. We jump to Tyrosh, where Tylan is singing, and he gets the approval from Laura. She will ride with him. He needs to make love to her.
See, this is what's going to happen is that Rhaena's going to be like, oh my god, it's a dragon. It's so beautiful like the morning. And then the cannibal's going to fly down and eat it. And then she's going to claim the cannibal.
Yes. Laura wants children from this man. And she ends it by saying, to the gullet we go. So they're pretty much there. The war is
so this admiral is a lesbian and has a bunch of wives, right? You know what I mean? Which shout out lesbians, you know what I mean? But the so a lot, you know, there's a lot of gay energy in this show in general. You had Laenor in the first season, and you have Rhaenyra, who's obviously very much bisexual, or at the bisexual, pansexual, whichever you want to call, you know, whatever they would say. I'm not sure what specifically the showrunners would say. I'm sure they'd have an answer, but certainly willing to have sex with both, right? And then you have this woman who has a bunch of wives, which obviously just in her culture is clearly just accepted because she's an admiral, so she has that. You know what I mean?
Free cities,
she can just decide to do that. You know what I mean? But he's like, I want you to impregnate my wives, basically, so I can have kids. And that's like, okay, so you're gonna have noble stock. It's basically like a donor, basically. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm probably would be looked at as weird, but essentially her descendants now will be descendants of also the Lannisters, which I think is kind of interesting. I wonder if that is an actual thing that will matter in history ever. Probably not, but
yeah.
There's just some random Lannister descendants, I guess, running around, at least in this timeline. There'll be some, presumably he'll have done that deed unless it just never happens, but, you know, maybe he did. I don't know, but I just, there's a lot of, I don't know, just maybe the way she played it, the actress playing the Admiral, she wanted to fuck Tylan, you know what I mean? She did, or the actor.
He was like, how many wives?
How many wives do you have? I was like, he wasn't against it. He's like, okay, I'll have sex with a couple people, but how many?
That man was tired. He's not even going to be able to get the thing up.
Nah, I mean, you just got to space.
He's a Lannister.
Here's how you do that. You space it out. You know, you say, okay, we're gonna be here for a week. You know,
I'll tell you what, he did look like a happy man on that boat at the end.
Hey, he probably had a good time. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey,
yeah.
You know, we hey, they probably got, you know, facilities for that on the ship, right? You know, like.
Oh yeah. So we jump to Dragonstone. We're at the dinner table.
Targaryen family dinner.
We got Rhaenyra, Ulf, Hugh, Adam, Jason, Baela all gathered. Ulf's being the light in the room again, cracking jokes. Rhaenyra is making a toast to the new dragon rider. She serve her well, and she will make you knights of the realm. She goes on to say, Corlys is right. They must strike while they have the advantage. It's time to end this war. Learn your beasts and their commands. We fly in 2 days' time. The strongholds of the usurper, Old Town, and Lannisport all must be subdued. Alone with no allies, they will have no choice but to surrender. And Hugh looks horrified by this. It almost has you wondering if he's thinking, did he choose the wrong side?
I think Hugh didn't realize what he was getting into. I think that's what it is. I don't think he understands what the scale of this war is because he was stuck in King's Landing. You know what I mean? Like, he realizes, because I think unlike the other ones, because he makes weapons for a living and he's probably seen what those weapons can do in certain scenarios, you know what I mean? Like, I think he just understands. Like, you have to think, if you make weapons for the war, and you'd think you probably are pretty, you know, obviously business hasn't been great since the blockade and all that. You know, you would assume at some point in his life he had a time where they were buying weapons from him to fight off different, you know, battles and stuff like that. So, you know, he's seen probably the effects of wars to an extent, or at least seen what crime does in the streets, and it's not that far off. So, like, I don't know, but what I think is interesting is how Ulf, you were talking about how Ulf is kind of just like laughing and joking. He's the one that really doesn't understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. He's going to have a shock moment where he realizes I don't think it's going to really stink in for him until the first big battle he's in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, because he's still happy-go-lucky, but I think Hugh understands. I think when they start talking about, because Rhaenyra is just honest with them here. She's like, yeah, you guys are probably, there's a good chance you're going to die, you know, doing this. The fact that you chose to do this is pretty cool. And he's kind of just like, oh shit, yeah, there's like because I don't think, I mean, answer me this. Do you think that he has like a good idea of what was going on outside of King's Landing being there? Or do you think the information
they've got no fucking clue.
Yeah, so, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Jake's threatening him early on. He also mentioned about Aemon's destroying Sharp Point. So it's like, yeah, they have no idea what they're in for.
I think for a lot of people that watch this show, Hugh's going to be like the insert character. You know what I mean? Like, where he represents the way the audience reacts to a lot of stuff. And we've seen when people make choices that he doesn't agree with, it influences what he does. So, you know, pay attention to that, I guess. I mean, because it's clearly he clearly has a very defined set of morals that he follows. Whether those align with everybody else's, we'll have to see.
Yeah. And so Baela says, you wish us to kill innocents? Again, I really love Baylor.
I think Ulf will kill some innocents without thinking about it.
He says, "And so many." Jace says, "Basically, this is the way." Rhaenyra says, "We must break the will of our enemy. Vhagar is only one dragon." Rhaenyra gets a message from Harrenhal. She stands up. She calls to Adam.
Yeah, killing innocents was the only thing that made Ulf go, wait, what?
Yeah. She calls for Adam to ride with her, already showing trust. And she doesn't want Daemon to show treachery. Yeah, we immediately jump to Harrenhal. Daemon's asleep. Alice is sitting on his bed. Not like in a sexual way, but
well, I mean, hey, we don't know what happened before we got there.
Like straight up. Like,
we don't know what happened before we got there. We don't know. You know? Hey,
yeah.
You don't. Yeah.
She takes Daemon to the Godswood. A green man is spotted with antlers.
So that was just a random Easter egg to throw in there. They should be around in this area because that's the woods that they inhabit. For those of you that don't know the geography, the reason why the God's Eye was mentioned here was because that they're literally right next to it. Like it's that body of water that's right next to you. Excuse me, at Harrenhal, it's right there. In case you didn't know the geography of Westeros, you could literally jump off of Harrenhal. Well, I don't know if you could jump off into it. You could try though. You could probably do it off. Yeah. What if, bro? Do you think if you flew like the height of a diving board off of a dragon, you think it's deep enough? If you just dove in, you could swim. You think you could dive off into? You think you could do it? Daemon totally did that, right?
You're fucking drowning, 100%.
What? No, it's deep enough. That's what I'm saying. You just dive in. Like no. Like diving board height. Like I'm saying, like a height of a diving board. You just skim in the water like Daenerys did with her dragons all the time. You totally jump in, right? Easily. Would it be pleasant? No, but you could do it.
You probably get something stuck to your fucking leg and kill you.
You actually, you know what? Fuck it. It's like the Hogwarts Lake. There's a fucking sea monster in there. I could see George R. R. Martin. Actually, you know what? There could be a sea monster in there. Honestly. Sea dragon? Fuck it.
Fuck it. So, there are omens here for those who seek them.
But yeah, that's that lake. I just wanted to point that out in case they didn't know.
He says, "I'm not inclined to anymore." Alice says, "I'm pleased to hear it. All your life you've sought your own fate. Today you are ready." And she guides him to putting his hand on the tree. And I think this is a big Daemon's character arc this season. I think to a lot of people, now that it's all done, I think they're going to look back on it and be like, holy shit, this guy went through a fucking ride. And now well, let's get into it. Now he gets to where he's at. So he
talk about it for a second. I do have to use the restroom.
Yeah. Oh, good. So he sees the three-eyed raven. And we got Brynden Rivers here looking young. So that was really cool to see. And then I got to wonder, is this the actor that they're using in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms? Because that is around the same timeline where he is. So maybe he pops up in that. I don't know. White Walkers are spotted walking. Some people thought this was the Night King. I believe it was just the White Walkers myself. That's kind of what I'm going with. We see dragons dead. Is this an omen for the war, maybe? Could this be Targaryens dead? Visions get a little weird with Targaryens and dragons. Could they be picturing themselves as the dragon? I don't know. He's seen walking in blood. Daemon is shown drowning, which I'm guessing is drowning in the God's Eye. Seems pretty convenient for what's happening here. We see dragon eggs on fire, and we see Daenerys Targaryen with her dragons. And this was not a rip from the finale. This was a new actress playing Daenerys. This was played by Imogen Ruby Little. She kind of posted videos of her as Daenerys. And we also see a version of Dany in a dress, which was seemingly cut. She said, "So much of the footage we got didn't make it past the editing room, but absolutely over the moon."
Oh, so they did film new footage with Emilia Clarke. That's actually really cool, considering she said she hadn't watched this show. So she's a fucking liar.
So yeah, she's very excited to be given this opportunity, and yeah.
So they got her to strip down naked for new scenes? That's insane.
It was a new actress, Imogen Ruby Little.
Okay, I was going to say, I thought, controversy with her, so they got someone else to film nude Dany. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because I was going to say, that's insane if they got that. That would have been the craziest 180 of all time, you know what I mean?
And this is kind of all about Daemon learning the prophecy, and whether that's, we see when the red star bleeds and the darkness gathers, we see the red star bleeding, and then it immediately cuts to Dany about the idea of Azor Ahai shall be born again amidst the smoke and salt to wake dragons out of stone. It's all about the prophecy. Is this them telling us Dany is the prince that was promised? Is it all going to that?
I mean, I don't see.
We then
I was
immediately
talking about this
see-
with you. I don't even know if the prophecy is real in the books. You know what I mean? Like it's all fucking metaphor in the end of the day,
It is,
right? Like,
but we see Helena say, who's also in this vision, which is fucking nuts. We see Rhaenyra on the Iron Throne, and we see Helena say, "It's all a story, and you are but one part of it. One part in it. You know your part. You know what you must do." Holy shit! There's a lot about this. We'll jump in the Helena thing in a second here because it caters into the next scene.
yes,
Beautifully done, by
which
the way.
I do want to really talk.
And this is a fucking super cameo fest.
Yes,
B, Daemon knows what must be done. Whether that's, his line living on, whether that's he has to be the one to, you could take it as, in this moment, is he the one that had to kill Rhaenyra? Does he have to kill her to take the throne himself? Clearly, by the end of the episode, I think that's not the case. But you know what you must do. And then Helena is speaking that out loud, and Aemond walks in. Could it be Daemon and Aemond? Is that his role in this war? Is that his part? But Duke, Helena was saying those words while Daemon's hearing them.
no. There's two ways you can interpret that, right? Two ways. You can interpret it two ways. So we know she can't see the future. She could just have been remembering saying that in some sort of, time, right? Or I guess because that's the third way you can interpret it. The third way you can interpret it is she says those words out on just because she's like, just saying them out there while she's by herself. Because sometimes when you're by yourself, you talk, you know what I mean? And so he just sees that at the end of his vision. That would be the weirdest one, in my opinion. I don't know that would make a lot of sense, but it's possible that she was just saying that and he just saw that, right? The second interpretation you can have is she was speaking directly to him.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool interpretation that I will get into in a second, that I think is probably the most likely, which I'll explain why I think that is in a second. The third interpretation is that I guess the third interpretation would be that maybe she didn't actually say it directly to him, but Alice was able to somehow make that. I guess it really only did two. It's either she was speaking to him or she wasn't. Whatever the means by you get there is pretty much one of the two. And I think it's more likely that instead of her actually just having dragon dreams, I think she might actually be like either a green seer, or it's possible that maybe like Daenerys the Dreamer implies, and Brynden Rivers in the future implies, that you don't necessarily have to be descendant of the Weirwoods, to be able to access that sort of power. So I think the two big supporting things for that here, right, are the fact that we've never seen this method for how you get a vision from the Weirwoods before. He goes out to the tree, it starts bleeding way more than we've seen the other trees bleed before, right? And as far as I can tell, whenever the trees bleed like that, we never actually see the drip down the tree unless there's nobody around. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the only time someone's been present for that, which would make me think that either Alice did something to make that happen, or the tree only does it in certain instances, like the deceased children of the forest or whatever that inhabit the trees, right, decide to just give these visions in certain instances, right? Which would make a lot of sense. There's some precedent with that, I think, with Bran being near the trees and people laying on like weirwood stumps getting visions and stuff like that. So, but I think this is something they specifically wanted to show Daemon for whatever reason. But I think what they essentially did here was their brains connected through the Weirwood net, which makes me wonder, does she have the ability to access it, Now, I could be completely wrong. I think the second version is also as equally as possible, is that he was just shown what was happening over there right at that moment. You know what I mean? Like perhaps him seeing stuff didn't stop with where the scene begins next. Because if that's the case, then he knows now a lot more about what he has to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's get into that scene.
He's got motivations. His motivations have changed.
What I do think, I do really like the idea that she's not just seeing the future, but she's maybe the most powerful green seer we've ever seen. You know what I mean?
And like George mentioned, this was her gift for prophecy, is something that he didn't have in the book. And it's now that this was born in the writer's room, but now that it is there.
I think no matter what, she is basically Daenerys the Dreamer reincarnated, one way or the other. You know what I mean?
And it's important to, let's reference this again in case people are new. George did mention, he said, verbatim, Fia Sabin's Helena is a richer and more fascinating character than the one I created in Fire and Blood. It's that simple. So I think he is hearing this and being like, just wow. I think he's digging what she's doing because clearly he loves the idea that she's got this prophecy. So yeah, so Aemon approaches her. He says their mother can't understand she's not a dragon rider. He wants her to ride out to Harrenhal and lay waste to Daemon with him. We will see our outrage with outrage. And she says, if I refuse, will you burn me as you did Aegon? He says, that's a lie. She says, I saw it. She says,
so that confirms something I thought, and I said in our review for that episode where Aegon gets brought back after the battle over Rook's Rest. And she's kind of already in her morning clothes, and she's looking at Aemon like, I know what you did, motherfucker. But you don't know that that's what she's thinking. Now we know for sure. She knew then, probably, like, what had happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, okay. Where was I? She said, you burned him and let him fall. You say, he says, what you say is treason. She says, Aegon will be king again. He sits on a wooden throne, and you'll be dead, swallowed up in the God's eye, never seen again. He says, I could have you killed. And Helena goes, it wouldn't change anything. Jesus. What a fucking another.
So this is what I'm saying. If what I think she just revealed to everybody in that moment is that not only does she see the future, but it's almost like a prescience type ability where, like, she can't call on it every time, but when she wants to look at certain things, as long as it's not like a gray area of her memory that's in flux, which it does seem like there are some things that she's implying are in flux, which tells me that she has not only a good understanding of how this power of hers works, but she can use it in order to look at certain things. And she's been looking into the future of the war, and she knows what's going to happen. And she knows that she doesn't have to do anything because he can do whatever he wants to her or anyone else. But what she ultimately wants to happen is going to happen no matter what. So
yeah,
that's a fucking insane superpower to give this character. And it makes her seem so much more important than she ever was treated in the book. And it's, I mean, she's a throwaway character for all intents and purposes in the book.
She's literally just written as gone to madness after Blood and Cheese. That's it.
Correct, yep. And we don't ever hear about her really again after that, other than to say that she's just around. I think we'll probably hear about her after the stuff with Aegon, but it's probably not more to say than, yeah, she's still crazy, you know, like, I seriously doubt if you even get that, so, you know.
Yeah, so we jump to Harrenhal where Rhaenyra arrives. Simon greets her.
And I got to shout out Fia because she made me tear up in that scene. That was such incredible acting. Like it was beautiful. That was just a fucking incredible scene.
Rhaenyra sees the army that Daemon has gathered. She asks him, "Who are you sworn to?" He knows the prophecy. The war is just beginning. Winter is coming. He says, "My brother chose you. The realm's only hope is a leader who can unite it." He bends the knee. Sir Alfred Broom is seen shook. God, that man, he's... Jesus. Talk about feeling a little fucking guilty. I mean, if I'm him, I'm thinking Daemon's taking my fucking head in 2 minutes. Everyone bends the knee. And they kind of have a little joke about, you know, she's like, "You don't ever try to fucking leave me again." It'll be your
like,
death.
"Bro, I tried."
Your peril. He's like, "I can't leave you. I tried." He has a really badass speech about there will be no mercy. We fight for our fucking queen. And oh my God. Let's go. And, you know, this is something we figured would happen. They never mentioned Rhaenyra going to Harrenhal in the book, but we called it right away. She has to see him again. She fucking has to. There's straight up no way she doesn't not see him again this season if he's just chilling in Harrenhal all by himself.
I mean, we thought it was going to be other stuff, but the big turmoil of this season ended up being the relationship between Rhaenyra and Daemon needing to resolve before we could move forward, which in the books is treated like that, but like it's... Here's how I would describe reading this point up to this point because there is a similar like moment in the books where they're like, yep, Daemon's got his army and now it's ready to go and they are all on the same page now. And you're like, okay, I wonder how that happened. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I wonder what he's up to next. Yeah. Like, where's he
getting
going?
to see how we got there is much better than like, it's to me, it's, I think hopefully going to inspire Denis to do stuff differently with Dune Messiah than maybe it's done in the books a little bit in order, because if you structure the story a little bit slightly differently, like a little bit, I don't know, like oblong on one end or something like that in order to stretch out the material a little bit and also make the story a little bit richer overall, I feel like there's room for that in Messiah as well. And I feel like that's how you have to kind of do a story like this, where you're not given the full breadth of everything, you know what I mean? Like, to work with, you know, you can adapt, but then like you have to also include things that aren't like shown, because there's a lot of like off-screen stuff that we must have happened, but we don't ever hear in the book. So that's the thing this show in season 1 specifically did such a brilliant job of, is filling those gaps in a way that makes sense.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I really like that scene. God, dude, just reading this back, I'm like, holy shit, the writing on this episode was so fucking strong. And then you get like the Rhaena shit. It's like, I guess not everything can be bulletproof, right? In terms of plot writing.
I don't even have any criticism for those scenes. They have no meaning whatsoever.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
They have no connection. There's no scenes.
Speaking of something that has meaning, oh my God, let's go to Driftmark, where we got Corlys and Alan. We have this brilliant scene where Corlys is wanting Alan to be more of a vocal leader. He says he has a position here everyone wants. You're men. They find you distant. You can't lead if you can't inspire. Ooh, I like that. Corlys says, I'm trying to help you. And Alan just, you want to help? Is this your offer after all these years? A reminder to be grateful? Do you know what it was like for us to grow up fatherless to bastards? Never sure if we eat, what grief or shame does? And Corlys is like, you are dismissed. He's not angry, but he's like upset at himself. And he doesn't like that this is happening. It's almost like Corlys has feared this moment. Alan says, I sold fish.
I think that's the one thing this character has done this season, is like he's avoided this confrontation no matter what. Even when one of his sons is literally at fucking Dragonstone with them, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he still refuses to go see him until the absolute last moment, until it's like no longer like it's starting to look weird that he hasn't acknowledged him yet. You know what I mean? Like, and so now being forced. It's like he decided, okay, I talked to the one, I should go talk to the other. The first one went easily because that one really had no expectations, you know, whereas this one has intentionally avoided me for all this time. This is a lot more difficult of a confrontation. He thought it was going to be easy, and as soon as it became a difficult emotional moment, he decided to throw it away. But unfortunately for him, our boy is not happy to just let this go.
No, not at all. And he says, I sold fish in a market from dawn to sunset. I watched the man who sired me with his son with fur on his shoulders to eat sweetmeats to eat after supper. Now he is dead and his sister before him, and the heir that took his place. Oh my God, he's giving such a brilliant performance here. And he says, now you remember I live. He's emotional. He says, now you wish to scatter the crumbs of your favor. He says, I am honorable and I will serve you because I must. I will decline any offers of help. If I survive, I will continue as I began. Alone.
Now, I have to say this because it's going to become more and more obvious as the series progresses across season 3. I think you'll probably get to see a really good idea of this. Corlys is still looking for an heir to Driftmark, you know what I mean? God, does anyone else... I talked about how self-made Corlys is. He may be really uncomfortable with what he's hearing right now, but you have to think in the back of his mind, this is everything Corlys would want in a successor, you know?
Yeah, and unless Joffrey ends up really like taking the shit by the fucking reins, like I don't see how he gives it.
Does Joffrey even have time for that? I mean, how old is Corlys? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like he would have to get his.
He's been kicking since the time of the.
They need this war to end tomorrow.
Great meeting of really, honestly. So
to hopefully get Joffrey in there.
But like, if he were to go off and distinguish himself on the seas, it would be really difficult for someone like Corlys not to look at this guy and how he operates and how he's built up his life and career and stuff like that. You know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was one thing when they were, you know, there wasn't like a war going on, but now like he needs him to step up and he's got to try and repair this relationship. But like, if you really think about it, this is he embodies everything that Corlys embodies in a lot of ways, you know, except for not being truly of noble birth, obviously. But that's not, it's kind of out of his control.
And now we get towards pretty much the end of the episode. So Rhaena's in the Vale. She spots a dragon in the sky and she runs after it. Just no heat to these scenes at all. We jump to Dragonstone where Rhaenyra and Mysaria talk about how they've been rewarded for their risk. And there's kind of a poetic scene where from the last episode, we saw them having this conversation. There was one dragon in the background. And now this episode, we got 2 dragons in the background. So this is kind of neat to show, like, I like little background nuggets like that. And then our one of our big closing scenes here is Alicent shows up. Rhaenyra's trying to get some sleep and her Kingsguard.
By the way, can they sell those capes with the 2 dragons on the shoulder bits? Like, can I have that, please?
Fucking clean looking. Alicent admits she had to see her. She tells Rhaenyra, "My protector laid down a sword at your gate," and she admits she didn't know what she wanted, but Rhaenyra wants to know, why have you come here? Alicent says she's lost her way. She's been alone. Rhaenyra honestly doesn't care about this. She mockingly goes, "Well, good for you." Like, it's too late, Alicent. At the end of the day, it's too late. And Alicent goes on to say she will lay down the gates for her when she arrives. There can be no bloodshed. Like, you can come take King's Landing. I'll give it to you. It'll just be me and Helaena there. Aemon's gonna be gone. He's on his way to Harrenhal in 3 days' time. Like, there doesn't have to be bloodshed. Rhaenyra laughs at this, and then she eventually gets her to understand, like, it's too much time has gone. She has to take Aegon's head. Like, you have to understand this. And Alicent, she almost wants her to come with her, like, wishing that it was 20 years ago when they were kids and they could have actually broke off and not deal with any of this shit. Alicent can't believe her life has come to this, and
if it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
Goddamn right. Like, do you honestly believe my father picked him? Do you honestly believe that? And this is an emotional scene. There's a lot that went on here. And
we're giving a lot of shit, but that has been her arc this season, has been coming to the understanding that she made a mistake with starting this war.
Absolutely. And
it's like, okay, fine. But I mean,
whether it takes her to, go dive in to the lake and commit seppuku nearly, but it wasn't the case. So now she's here and she's letting Rhaenyra know, but this is not the same Rhaenyra that you saw episode 3, baby girl. This is not the same one. This is a Rhaenyra that's about to go kill innocents. She just had a meeting. I'm going to say, it feels like that night where she was like, no, because that was before Harrenhal. She had a meeting maybe like 2 weeks ago with all those motherfuckers saying, yeah, it's time. We're going to kill innocents. We are killing that fucking army. Rhaenyra from episode 3, she was not feeling that.
Rhaenyra from episode 3 was like, Alfred, I didn't do it. And he was like, I mean, but we could get it if you did, though. Yeah, he's like, I didn't.
Rhaenyra has grown a lot this season from where she was. And basically, Alicent kind of agrees that, yeah, her and Helaena are going to lay down the law. Like, they're going to let it come in. And Rhaenyra's like, you'll be painted as a villain by history. She's like, what do I do with you now? And
I like the way that is, because in history, in the book, she is painted as quite a villain.
Totally painted as a fucking villain.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. She's literally painted as the scary godmother in the book. So,
So we'll see where that goes. Rhaenyra ends up letting her go. And then we get the closing scene where we get this music cue. Oh my God. This music was like unbelievably great. I wrote the meat of the war is now.
Do you think Orwell could meet the guy that writes the book at some point?
Nah. I mean, I'm sure
we could go to Old Town. He could make like a small cameo. That would be kind of cool.
Even like Orwell, I'm sure his notes, out of respect for Queen Alicent, he didn't write that he did that for her. So the Maester would never know, right? Theoretically.
Oh, I just mean like as just like a random cameo, like in season 3 or 4.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He just shows up. Like, as like, and he's like, Orwell's like, hey, like this crazy stuff's going on. You should maybe write some of this down. I mean, that would be kind of lame, but like, like the implication being like he's gonna take history. Maybe right after the ending sequence. I almost named what it's gonna be called. I guess if I did, it's just a chapter in the book name. You wouldn't necessarily know what's gonna happen in there, but the finale, we'll call it, of the story. You could literally have a scene in there where you go over to the Citadel and it's like, yeah, we're writing the history of this because that was crazy, wasn't it? All those dragons, like.
Just like they did with Sam and
yeah, they could literally do that. They could do a similar, but make it actually like, no offense to that show, but that scene did not earn that at all. Versus this would very much so. You know what I mean? So
all the dragon riders are seen suiting up. They feel like knights. Rhaena sees this. I just wrote ugly ass feral dragon. That's what I imagine a feral dragon would look like, straight up. So they fucking nailed that.
Yeah, I don't know why they decided to bridge this story in out of nowhere. Like, it just, like, I don't know. Maybe they just decided they didn't want to write the other character that maybe should be involved at this point. But, like, it's interesting direction. I mean, I'll have to see if they pull it. It's the sad thing is I can't tell you how I really feel about it because they didn't do it this season. So I don't have we don't know how it's going to be executed. So, because if done right, it could be good either way, but we don't know. We're not going to know for 2 years. So, like, I expect that'll be one of the first couple episodes next season will be that exact thing happening.
Yeah, and while all this is happening, Alicent is walking away back to King's Landing, back to her ship. And it's going to be interesting for her getting back. with if Aemon's installed that fucking check every vessel.
That I'm
That
comfortable
would be
saying this.
interesting.
I think that'll be the last time we see Alicent for a good long while. I would think, right? If we
could
even
be.
see her again, she might just be going off into the sunset. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we see the High Towers are marching. We see Tessarion, the Blue Queen, flying overhead, looking beautiful in blue. The Starks are seen marching through the Twins, and we've gotten post-production of Cregan was in this scene, and they straight up cut him. Which, good on you, because you know what? Cregan should be nowhere near marching yet. If we're being straight up honest, and they want to like keep some continuity with the books, Cregan should be nowhere near this. I'm glad they made.
Yeah,
the
I'm
decision
comfortable
in the editing
saying that
room.
he sends they were the Greybeards, right? He sends
Yep.
troops at, I want to say, I won't say at different points because I don't remember if he sends more troops or not, but he sends off these initial troops that they promised, right?
Yeah.
And he
This is the
doesn't
first
march
Stark
with them,
army.
I don't think, right? He
No.
doesn't initially go
Absolutely
down.
does not march with.
He
The
doesn't
first with the
involve him.
Greybeards.
He's not it's like the other Starks because it takes so long to muster all the men of the North. Because you got to remember, it's not just the Starks that when they call their banners, it's not just he could call his house members and maybe the local houses that are really close by. That'd be easy to coordinate, right? But
It took from the
he's going to
opening
call
scene
the
of show-
entire banners of the North. You know what I mean? So
it took from the opening episode.
I'm not going to say he will. Sorry, he would have to if he was going to march
He would have
south.
to,
He would
yeah.
have to call most of, if not all, of the armies. So and that takes a while. You know, they kind of cheated in Game of Thrones a little bit, but like by just sending out all the
Talk about
ravens.
spending some time,
But it takes a
opening
little bit of time.
episode.
So even if he's
Yeah.
done that, it's not like he would be there tomorrow. So I'm glad they decided to do that. It would have been cool to see him, but it makes a lot more sense for them to,
Mhm.
especially again, if we're not going to see him or that army again for a while, we should probably see the army
the
and not
important part
see.
is we
see
already
him.
have the actor cast. So if we get more Starks, which I'm assuming we will,
I would be shocked if we didn't see him. I mean, you know what? It would be smart to do. I think now it would be to shoot some scenes with him in Winterfell. Maybe he meets
Yes,
with like
which-
a representative of.
yes,
Yeah, here's
Mhm.
what you could do: invent a new person. Maybe this is what you do with a dude that just left from Harrenhal. Maybe he goes to the north to commiserate with Cregan a little bit, or somebody else from the camp goes north. Maybe you send Jace back. I mean, that's possible, right? I mean, but I don't think they'll do
originally
that.
people thought Jace was going back this season when no one had
he could
any
have.
idea.
Hell,
Yeah.
you never know. Just because certain things are going to happen at some points, you got opportunity. Like I said, they're great at filling those gaps. So again, but I would actually not even care if they just invented a character's that's not doing something at that time, just going up there, be like, "So what's going on, Cregan? We're waiting on your troops." Like, yeah, they're on the way, man. I don't know what you want from me. Like,
Yeah.
we got dragons; they could travel.
Lannisters are seen marching towards the Riverlands. Daemon is in his beautiful armor, gathering his army. Tyland is in the seas with Laura. Alan is in the seas with Corlys. We see Otto Hightower for the first time since episode 2, right? Maybe 3? 2?
Whichever episode Aemon took over,
Episode
right?
2. Episode 2, where he walks away and he says, Otto is seen in fucking prison.
Oh yeah, no, Aegon fired him. Aegon fired him.
Yeah.
Aegon
What the
Targaryen.
hell
Aegon.
could this be? I mean, could this be Larys? Is this the Beesbury's? I think this could be a way where you introduce Daeron, saving him out of, if it is prison by the Beesbury's, you could introduce Daeron, saving him, and he could like bring him to King's Landing. You could get a scene with Daeron and Alicent. You could get a scene with, see Daeron with his brothers. Well, brother, or now that fucking Aegon's gone, but. Which, speaking of that, Aegon and Larys are seen traveling in a cart. Where are they going? Just cool to see Otto in prison, I gotta tell you. Not for the character, but it was cool to see Otto. Because that has been a wonder, like, where has he been? This is, by the way, this is how you put someone in prison. You don't just have to pull him out the next episode, right?
Yeah, true. Like he's been in prison for a while, and we didn't even know.
But
Take notes, Kripke.
Jesus. But no, that was a really cool shock. And then we get this insane closing shot where it's a parallel with Alicent and Rhaenyra, and Alicent is seen as free. She's in the open. There's nothing around her. And this shot of Rhaenyra in Dragonstone with all the histories above her.
I
And it's
think
almost
this one visceral
Rhaenyra's
image
being
will
the-
solidify Alicent as a villain permanently in people's mind, and I think this will
Mhm.
codify Rhaenyra as the good, if there's a good in this
She's
story.
weighed down by all the history before her. And Alicent's free now. Alicent got the closure with Rhaenyra that she needed. In her mind, now she's going to go to King's Landing. She's going to wait 3 days. She's going to let Rhaenyra walk in through the door, and all's going to be great. Hopefully, Aemon she literally just sacrificed her own son's life. Because Alicent has no idea Aegon's gone when she does this. Which, I wonder how Rhaenyra is going to react to that. Maybe Rhaenyra is going to think, oh, this foul-mouthed fucking traitor again. Here we go. So, yeah, that's the episode. I don't know. And that's the season all wrapped up. So, yeah, I think we covered a lot of our thoughts on how we felt about the season as a whole. Just the war has begun. And
I wish they hadn't marketed it as it was already going to be beginning in this season, but like whatever.
Yeah.
That's my only gripe with this season is the marketing. We've
definitely seen people that did not know the source material fall victim to, unfortunately, they thought it was going to be Battle of the Bastards 6 out of the 8 episodes. They definitely did.
No, that's totally true. And like, I was like not thinking it was going to be that, but like I was down for that if that's what they decided to do, because like there's different ways you can interpret this book. You could interpret it in that style. There's definitely enough battles, but you don't need to. I mean, the budget of a battle like that. The reason why we haven't gotten a battle scene like that since the crab feeder stuff is because of how expensive it is to shoot. You know what I mean? Like,
well, think of Rook's Rest. I mean, the behind the scenes of that episode is some of the coolest shit I've ever fucking seen.
Yeah, and that took them probably fucking weeks and weeks and weeks to film, and then the CGI probably took like a year. I mean,
they're legit lighting people on fire for the scenes. Like, every it's real fire.
I love Game of Thrones, man. Game of Thrones has been doing that since like season 3 or something like that. Like, they just legit set people on fire, and they don't give a fuck what happens. It's kind of like AEW, honestly. Who's the Jack Perry of the Game of Thrones universe? Probably Kristen Cole, right?
Fuck. Nah, Daron the Good. Come on,
true.
Daron the Good.
It's got to be him. One with a level head.
Yeah, guys.
A badass dragon, though.
We're gonna get into some
that's not a spoiler. Though. Saying his dragon is badass, that's not a spoiler.
We saw that thing; it looked fucking sick.
Oh yeah, we did. We went to Old Town for like 3 seconds, right? Yeah.
So we're gonna get a little into spoiler talk now. So
well, actually, we didn't go there. We saw that dragon though.
If you guys are wanting to keep it clean, don't want to know much about the book and this and that. Actually, I'll do this in spoilers. Just today, which is a good thing that we don't record our stuff immediately after. So, House of the Dragon, it officially got greenlit again it's going to end with season 4. We've always kind of known it would end with season 4.
Yeah, there was rumors about season 3 last time. I think 2 years ago they thought maybe they'd be able to get it done, and probably back then it had a similar timeline to what I suggested earlier in this show's like review list, like the reviews, which was that I thought maybe we would be where they're setting up to start off next season at, or maybe even end next season at. I thought maybe we could jump like some time like we did last season, and that's how we do that. You know what I mean? But they decided not to do that. They just told the story.
And George famously said he believes that this show will take 4 seasons, and that was before the first episode.
I didn't even know he ever said that. That's pretty crazy. That makes a lot of sense.
The first episode ever rang, and now Ryan Condal today has been doing.
I wish they'd done the one he wanted. Let's go back to fucking old King Jaehaerys and start there. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Aaron Spare, baby.
Aaron Spare. Well, we'll get that. Look, this universe is so successful. We will eventually get that. It might be one.
I need the motherfucking Aegon the Conqueror show with fucking Calvarine.
My God, imagine. What's a Calvarine? Explain yourself. No,
I don't know what you're talking about. I plead the fifth.
But yeah, other than that, I think everything else is here on out. Is we're gonna just do little brief spoiler talk. Nothing too crazy.
You see, I saved that to the spoiler section of that. You didn't realize it was going to be a double. No.
Yeah. So I had saved something, and of course now I can't find it. So, oh well, I was going to talk about all the fucking future shows that they had, but all you need to know is A Night of the Seven Kingdoms next year, and then Fire and Blood Season 3 in 2026. They are starting production in January, so they're going to get fucking rolling. And yeah, at Eat Sleep Elite is our main Twitter. If you have any big questions, you can always write in on Spotify. We have a comment section. At Bane Duke, if you're interested in hearing from Duke, at Charlie with an X instead of an A. If you want to tell us to go fuck ourselves, we would greatly appreciate it. But that being said, we are now officially jumping into some Fire and Blood spoiler talk. We're not going to be here for a while, but yeah. So one of the big things I want to talk about right out of the gate here is, since Ryan Condal's been doing all of his press interviews, he was asked directly, straight up, about Nettles today in the Hollywood Reporter. So I'll just read it verbatim real quick. For the book readers, Condal was asked about Rhaena and has assumed the character of Nettles storyline from George R. R. Martin's Fire and Blood book. He said, and I quote, "I think that's a please stay tuned and keep watching the story," he said. "I will say we love Rhaena as a character, and we've really done a lot of legwork to set her up from the beginning as somebody in this Targaryen household who does not have a dragon, and we see how powerful an idea it is. We've seen how, with Aemon's character, somebody that grows up in a family, even in a time of peace when you don't have a dragon, how it changes how you're identified even within the family, and how desperate Rhaena is for that sort of self-identification as a dragon rider. And is willing to go fairly dangerous lengths to try to see that realized. We've heard multiple times, whether it was from Corlys or Rhaenyra, how she couldn't even get sea smoke. She's tried so many times it almost killed her. Ryan said, we're providing the television version of one objective truth of this history, and anybody who reads the book is free to interpret it how they want to. But there are a lot of paths to interpretation through this, and I think the Rhaena story, as we're seeing it unfold, is potentially one of those interesting interpretations that we have to offer. And I would just say that we don't do any of this stuff light. So, there's a lot there. Apologies if I
so we're in spoilers eat, right? Like I could say a thing.
Oh, yeah, this is Fire and Blood.
Okay, so
anything's off the rip.
It's possible that they just have Nettles save the day when she's about to die. You know what I mean? And then maybe she gets like she's got like a complex because of that, and like she's maybe still gonna get a dragon ultimately, but it's not whatever dragon. If this turns out to be Sheepstealer, maybe Sheepstealer still does end up going to Nettles. We still don't have. Didn't we have? I thought we had a casting of Nettles. Am I tweaking?
So, good thing you brought that up. So, yeah. Okay. The actress is Thuso Mbedu. And similar to the guy that played Alan, he showed up at the House of the Dragon season 1 premiere, right? And everyone's like, oh, is that just a coincidence? Well, this high-profile actress, Thuso Mbedu, shows up at House of the Dragon season 2 premiere. And it's like, wait, whoa, who is this? And honestly, when you look at her, she kind of looks like someone who would be Nettles. She like almost picture this as Nettles.
Yeah, if I had read House of the Dragon, Fire and Blood like you had read before season 1, I probably would have assumed that there would have been a scene with Alan in season 1. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or Adam, one of the two. You know what I mean? Just mentioning them or just briefly showing them, which we didn't do. But like, I would have just thought that would have been like just the way the timeline lines up, right? But obviously, the way they did it makes sense too. But yeah, I mean, if that's the case, great. If not, if she's playing somebody else, also awesome. There's plenty of opportunity for that. Or it could just be
she was just invited.
It could be that maybe they've thought about bringing her in as Nettles, similarly to how they thought about bringing him in that way. Maybe they even brought them onto the set so they could get an idea of what it would be like. You know what I mean? Yeah. And maybe even to test like costumes and stuff like that. But like, you know, it's an important character in the book. But like, if they decided to wholesalely cut it, I don't think. I mean, if they just replaced it with another storyline, that storyline better be damn good. Otherwise, it's going to be really, really annoying to some people, I would think. I'm willing to let them tell the story they're wanting to tell me before I judge it completely. But it does ring a little hollow to me if that's the case. But I do think it's possible that they're just going to do a different story with Rhaena and then have something happen completely separately with Nettles, because we just haven't seen anything from Nettles yet.
Yeah, and if it is Nettles, they're going to have to fucking get shit or get off the pot with the first episode, because that's either got to be her dragon or she's got to have claimed one. Like, they would have to do it really.
They cut to that scene quick. And you just zoom in and Nettles just pops up over the top like, yo, what's up?
I was joking to you last night, but I mean, hey, maybe this could be true. I said, it's all fun and games till Nettles walks around the corner and she's like, oh, that's my dragon. Hey, nice to meet you. Like, oh, wait, what? Who the fuck are you? It's like, oh.
Yeah, this is my dragon Sheepstealer, and we have a passion for fashion.
I think you could easily run the angle of, instead of Daemon, because Nettles and Daemon they have their storyline kind of runs together. You could easily have that storyline be Daemon and his own daughter. And maybe we see more of a humanitarian side, like, you know, of Daemon. And him being a father, which a lot of people were upset that they cut from season 1, is him being a good father. They filmed scenes, they cut him, they showed us previews of the scenes, they still cut him. So
I do think that the thing about that is if they want the choice that Daemon made to choose to be with Rhaenyra to stick, maybe they just don't have Nettles be a character, because that would kind of undermine that. But I mean,
yep. And I think you get it off the bat. You're like let's just let them tell the story. I agree with that sentiment so well, especially with something like Nettles. Like, yeah, she was awesome. And more importantly, I loved how she reacts to Jace and what happens to Jace. And it's just like, it sucks that if we do this.
I'll be honest with you. I jokingly said to you like a year or two ago that, oh yeah, Rhaena's going to claim sea smoke or something like that. And like, that's going to be our confirmation that Laenor was killed off screen. You know what I mean? Which I mean, some people think that's what happened, is that Laenor did die off screen. I mean, do you think that's what happened? I don't know. I don't think so.
My gut tells me yes, Laenor is dead now.
Yeah, maybe he is. I mean, so they off-screened him. That's fine. But I mean, whatever. It doesn't particularly matter because he didn't.
Off-screened, but he also...
At that point, I do agree with the people that are like, why didn't they just kill him then? I mean...
I think at that point, it's just up to our interpretation. Look, because in the TV universe...
I'm not going to go back and criticize season 1 because I don't hate season 1 at all anyway. So, like, there's nothing... I have no problem with either of these seasons, so... But I will say this, I have thought for a little while now that there is some room for that, for you to just change Rhaena into, like, proto-Nettles, essentially, and it would still work, and it would work in different ways, too.
We just need to make her scenes a little bit fucking tighter next season, because holy shit, she was... I did not care two licks of shit in this episode what she was doing. Unfortunately. I hope that they tighten those up a little bit. But, just a couple things I wanted to bring up to you about Fire and Blood. But yeah, I think Nettles was the first one. That was important to mention. And the fact that they did acknowledge it today, to me, that quote kind of, I don't think she, there's a whole other thing about that too of, she was, honestly, the only, like, character that is black in the book. Like, she's one of the only ones, and they cut her. That's kind of, that's a whole other fucking tree you can bark upon, but that's a whole other conversation. But I got it, dude. Seeing the Triarchy, and we had Jane Eyre mention the gay abandon, and with the Triarchy mentioning to the Gullet, I feel more confident than ever. We're opening up season 3, and the big battle is going to be the Battle of the Gullet. And it's going to be so fucking heart-wrenching, because you already know they're going to use Jace to promote the shit out of this season. Just like they're going to, it's going to be heartbreaking.
I think we could even pull like a little bit like we did this season where we pussyfoot around a little bit and we have a couple episodes before we even get there. You know what I mean? Like, that's possible. You know what I mean? Like, we could do that.
We could do some of these
we
battles.
could have Jace go on like a retirement tour. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and they could do a couple of these out of order. And another note I want to mention was showing Sir Alfred Broom being the Turncloak. That proves to me more than ever, I do believe this show is not going to end with the death of Rhaenyra. I believe this show will end more than ever now. We're going to spend a little time with Aegon III. And I think showing...
I sure hope so, because I needed that cooldown after that part of the book, man. The Hour of the Wolf was necessary.
Going this much out of the way to show Alfred Broom? There's no way. So, now that we know there's 4 seasons, let's end our Fire and Blood with this. Maybe a little outline of what could be next season, right? I think, and these could be out of order, but I think the main ones stick. Episode 1 could be the Battle of the Gullet. Episode 2, where we saw it right here, the Battle of the Honeywine, that there very well could be going to that. That could be episode 1, 2. They could mix together. All these could be spread throughout the same episodes. Episode 3, we got the fish feed, I'm assuming. They've mentioned Dalton Greyjoy how many times this season? That's one of the big cast members we're definitely going to be.
We may have like a multiple episode gap in between where we introduce that character and then have them show up, and maybe King's Landing wouldn't make sense, but like wherever the Greens will be camped out next season, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because they'll have
mid-season
some
finale,
operations from
I
somewhere.
think by that point we're definitely getting our fall of King's Landing, and look at all the shit that just happened. There's no way Rhaenyra is not going to believe Alicent fucking turned her back on her.
Oh.
I think episode 5, then you'll get some fallout from that. You have to have fallout from all the shit that just happened.
Yeah.
I think episode 6, you could get your Butcher's Ball, which that's going to be nuts.
Yeah.
Episode 7, we could get the first Battle of Tumbleton. And then episode 8 could be, that's your battle above the God's Eye. And in my opinion,
if that's how we end next season, that will be incredible.
Could be the greatest fucking finale.
Could be the greatest action moment in television history.
Or you could just do the Fall of Dragonstone and do the Battle of the God's Eye in the first episode of season 4. But I think...
I know, that's got to be a finale, man,
I think that's a finale. I really do. The way this season ended more and more, I got to...
No, they're going to have to go big next season, because people are going to come into next season saying, the finale was kind of
so Game of Thrones coded with the ending.
Oh, yeah.
Every ending of Game of Thrones, we were literally like, oh my god, I can't wait to see what happens next.
No, that's the great thing about it as a binge, was that you want to jump straight to the next season's premiere after the finale of the last one. And sometimes it would do a thing where it's like, we're going to go over here for a second. But usually you'd get right back to what you were wanting right away.
I've been watching so much George interviews this week, just in the background. And I love how he always mentions, like, you can interpret the show however the fuck you want. This can be another interpretation of the book. this can be the
I
true
used to hate
interpretation.
that, but the way he delineates it is actually really smart. There's the books that he writes, and that's one interpretation of the events. And he further delineates that even more when you go into Fire and Blood. There's multiple interpretations within that book that you can interpret from that book.
Yeah.
There's the interpretation of the Fire and Blood in the show. There's the interpretation of the Game of Thrones books in the show, which, if you didn't already notice this, do define certain things that aren't clear in more clear terms in the show than they do in the books, because in the books, you're locked into the POV of a singular character at a singular time, right? So you can only get their thoughts. You don't get the thoughts of all the other characters. You can get clues about them if they're a smart character, but you don't always know what they're thinking. This isn't Dune where you have all the POVs at the same time. You know what I mean? So you don't know what other people are thinking. You only get the one person's perspective. So if they have a skewed perspective, that's the one that you have. So in Game of Thrones, they were able to show multiple perspectives on scenes and show that it wasn't as black and white as certain characters thought it was in the books. Whereas in this show, you kind of just have to pick an interpretation. Talked about that before a lot in this review.
It's a fascinating way to look at it. I know our buddy, he looks at it as this is the events this is what happened. And, the books are the histories of what people wrote about that. Like that, you can look at it like that. And I think that's how Ryan Condal wants people to look at it, and that you can easily look at it like that too. I don't even know how I view it. To me, it's just the greatest fucking, it's my favorite thing. So it's my favorite franchise. A little bit of good news to end this. Let's end it on this. This just came out, the ratings of the episode. The season 2 finale captured a season-high audience with 8.9 million viewers across HBO and Max. The conclusion saw an uptick of 14% compared to the premiere. So that's a lot of motherfuckers getting on board from the first episode, catching up to watch the last one live. We saw it every year with Game of Thrones. And oh my God, dude, if next season is doing what I think they're doing, with people aren't going to be able to help themselves. They're going to be like, oh, Battle of the God's Eye next episode. The finale hype is going to be unreal. So, yeah, guys, unless you got anything else to add, I think that'll be it for us. And the next time we'll be back on this channel is to do our Dune review, our book review of Dune, which will be on the next week or two. We're going to film that and then we'll do a little time editing it, and you know how it goes. We're going to do that. We got Dune Messiah review. We got Children of Dune review.
We got ESE, the wrestling tomorrow. I got to watch like 3 hours of wrestling tonight. Ugh.
Eat, Sleep, Elite.
I might skip Rampage. No, I'm just kidding. I won't. Maybe I will, though. We'll see.
Another really good fucking Collision, man. Good God.
Yeah, that makes me excited to watch.
If you guys love wrestling, Eat, Sleep, Elite, our home name show is that's our wrestling show, and that is weekly on Tuesday, Wednesday, depending on wherever you live.
See, when Matt Hardy invades the show and turns it into Eat, Sleep, Delete, that's when everything goes to shit.
But yeah, if you're looking for more Game of Thrones content before that, before Night of the Seven Kingdoms comes out, we will review the actual.
We're hitting the books. Once we get through Dune, we're having a little bit of a Dune fucking meta crisis right now. But
and before Dune really hits, Dune.
We may take a break on the reviews though for Dune, and book wise, we might not hit Children right away after Messiah. Like we're gonna hit Messiah pretty soon after. I don't know if we're gonna. Children is. I'm gonna need time to think about how I feel about writing, because that one's a lot more complex than Messiah. Mm-hmm. Messiah, I can think how I'm gonna write about that book a little bit already. Especially having the breadth of my Dune notes already done. So but yeah, we'll see anyway.
TV wise, 3 Body Problem. It is a retro. I say retro review. The fucking show came out this year. Luke has not seen that. He has not read the books. Oh my God, I can't wait to fucking pick your brain about that show. It's so hard. And I mentioned to you last night, I kind of sent you my rankings that I keep throughout the year. This show and 3 Body Problem, the reality is they're both number 1, but you can't do that. So, it'll change each day. It's so hard for anything to beat this franchise, but that'll be our next television review. So that'll probably be sometime in September. So that being said, guys, hope to catch you around for Dune if you're interested in that. And if you only care about, this shit, we'll see you when we do that. So thanks again, everyone, and we will catch you guys on the flip side.